Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, the podcast designed to be your companion in the journey of self-discovery. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host, and a dedicated therapist. I'm the founder and owner of Self-Care Studio, a private counselling practice. With my clients and courses that I create on this podcast, I'm committed to ensuring that you have the support that you need. I created this podcast as a space for you to feel a sense of connection and a reminder that you're not alone in this thing that we call life, this adventure. This podcast is your weekly reminder to trust yourself, live life authentically, and embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore ways to break free from people-pleasing, overthinking, allowing you to claim your time and energy to live life on your terms. You'll be joined by myself as I take you through some episodes, or during the year, I'll have some special self-care experts as guests on my podcast. So if you're ready to step into a life that's truly for you, join me on this journey. Let's navigate the twists and turns of life together, and more importantly, live your life for you. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Let the Studio Chat begin. Welcome back to the Studio Chat podcast, to episode 87. It's so nice to have you here. And today we head over to Austin, Texas, and I have a chat with Melina Kane. And she is a certified life coach and a professional organizer who helps overwhelmed mums clear the clutter in their home, head, and heart so they can focus on what truly matters. As a mum of little ones, she found herself drowning in stuff. I'm sure some of you guys listening to this can relate. She felt constantly stressed and lacking purpose in her days. She discovered that she could reclaim her sanity, joy, and sense of self simply by removing the clutter from her home. Now that sounds pretty good. Now she helps other mums who are drowning in a season of overwhelm to live the best version of their life by having their values reflected in their home, heart, and habits. Guys, we're so lucky that Melina, after we had recorded this podcast, said to me, I'd really love to give something to your listeners to help them clear the clutter and a bit of a guide to help them have a more peaceful home. And I was like, oh my God, yes. So we and all of us are very lucky to have Melina. She's crafted something up especially for us. And it's like if you feel overwhelmed by the clutter in your home and you just don't know where to start, and you may have tried organizing things before, but later the clutter just comes back. So in this guide that she has crafted for us, again, it's so kind. Thank you so much, Melina. She actually walks us through a step-by-step guide on her signature framework of how to declutter and organize your home. So what she's done is she's actually helped us look at the chaos in 3 spaces in our life, which can really make a big impact on how we live our life every day. So it's to do with our nightstand, the entryway of your house, and your desk space. So we're actually going to learn her secrets to decluttering and how to embrace progress over perfection. Saying goodbye to chaos and hello to more peace. Oh my God, how good does that sound? So if you hop into my show notes, if you're listening to this on Spotify, down the bottom there'll be a link to her guide to a peaceful home, clearing the clutter. What I'll also do is in my link in my bio on Instagram, I'm going to have this link in there too. So if you can't find it on Spotify or not too sure where the show notes are, what I'm going to do is pop it onto Instagram. If you click the link in my bio in there, it'll say Clear the Clutter Guide, your free guide. And if you click on that, put your email address and Melina will send you this amazing guide. So let's get to this episode. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Studio Chat podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm looking forward to this on a personal level, but also I'm so grateful that I can share this with you. I love that I get to talk to people from all over the world, and I get really excited the fact that I get to talk to someone from Austin, Texas. And I did ask her about cowboys today. We had a really good conversation because you know me, I was like, where are the sexy cowboys at? So we had a good conversation about that. So today we've got Melina Kane, and she's a certified life coach and professional organizer who helps overwhelmed mums clear the clutter in their home, head, and heart so they can focus on what truly matters. And today we're going to talk about transforming your space to transform your life. And I think it's going to be something that, as a therapist, I see a lot of people coming to see me that their head is so full and so cluttered. And when they talk to me about their home space, their workspace from home, they've got a cupboard with all junk in it, or I really believe that it can be a reflection of how you feel mentally. So we're going to get right into this episode today. So a warm welcome. It's so nice to have you here, Melina. Hello.
Hi, Barbara. So I'm so excited to be here and spending time with you today.
I'm looking forward to our chat. So we're going to dive right in. So the first thing I want to ask you is, can you please share with us the difference between like decluttering and organizing? And even if you want to share with us what is decluttering and what is organizing?
Yeah. So, and it's a really good question because I feel like a lot of times people get these mixed up and blended, right? So decluttering is when you intentionally are going through any space in your home or really like your calendar, right? Like it could be in any space in your life and you're removing things. You're being intentional about asking yourself questions of like what's needed, what's not, and removing those things from that space to give you more space, right? Organizing is literally just taking what's already there and just organizing it and making it, more functional or more pretty, more aesthetically pleasing. So that's a big difference. So a lot of times when people they kind of jump just to the organizing, or maybe they do some very light decluttering, because decluttering is hard, right? You have to ask yourself a lot of hard questions and make a lot of decisions, and you get decision fatigue. So it's easy to want to skip over that and just kind of get to the end of it, just being, the labels and baskets of what you kind of see on TV, and just organize your space versus really getting to more of the root of the issue.
Yeah, because now we see a lot of things on influencers and social media about this whole let's organize the space and let's organize the cupboard underneath the kitchen sink. And they've got all the
Mm-hmm.
containers and all the labels. And like, I'm all for that. I'm all for a clean
Mm-hmm.
space and organized space. But what I feel like it's extra pressure on people to have their home like showroom ready and everything has to be all perfect and the labels all turn to the front, and it's kind of like, I know OCD is a real thing, so I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about like the standard of perfectionism, that when you work in the mental health space, that's where so many people have this real weight on their shoulders that they're striving to be this thing or perfectionism. When I ask them what it is, they can't tell me what it is. And it's also a sense of control. I find a lot of my clients, when they want to have, you are right. I think more people organize rather than declutter. And when they
Mm-hmm.
organize, it's a sense of, I've got everything in control.
Right. Yeah. And the keyword you said there was the striving, right? It's not necessarily when you're striving, you're very much coming from a place of outward, versus then more inward looking. And so you're more concerned about like, okay, what is somebody going to think about my space versus how does my space serve me? What's functional? What do I need in this season of life? And you can still have, your labels and baskets and things like that, but you're not white knuckling it as much,
Yeah.
and that's where that control piece comes in, right? And I mean, I'll be the first to admit and raise my hand that my tendency when life does feel out of control, like I clean,
Yeah.
like that's just kind of where my, getting some of that stress out. I do some stress cleaning. Yes,
And I
I
think
did
that's
some
very common.
yesterday.
I think there'll be a lot of people listening to this right now, nodding their head, going, "Yeah, Melina, that's me too." When
Hmm.
when I've had a stressful day, or the kids are going off, or something's happened at work, I come home and I just have to clean. But also, I find a lot of people have to clean themselves. They won't let anyone else at the
Mm.
clean because they can only clean the right way.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, and what you're kind of talking about too is like women and moms in particular. there's so much that they are managing mentally,
Yeah.
in their day, and then just the physical parts of motherhood that, yes, that control really comes into play just because there's so much stress and putting out fires all the time.
Hmm. So, in your experience, when we talk about decluttering and organizing, obviously, organizing is the one that most people go to and do.
Hmm.
Do you find that the decluttering is more people avoid it?
Yes. Yeah. Because the decluttering part, at least, when I work with people, it's very much it's like when you start sitting in your feelings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
People
who
don't like
wants to volunteer to sit in their feelings? Because you start pulling things out, and one of the ways you take everything out of this space, right? You just kind of put it in the middle of the floor. I don't advise that unless you really have time to do it. Start small, right? Do one drawer. I'm definitely not telling you to take all of your clothes out of your closet and you only have 20 minutes. Don't do that. But in a way, like whatever, space container you're working with, you take everything out. You literally have to sift through all of those things and make decisions. And as you're making those decisions of like, I purchased this, gosh, I haven't used this in like a year, but I spent so much money on this. And then feelings come up because of that. There's some shame, there might be some guilt, some stress, just the financial stress of that. You're also thinking about like the ideal version of yourself that also comes into play whenever you're looking at the things that you've purchased and haven't used or that you thought you were going to use. I mean, I bought a how to learn how to crochet kit when I was first pregnant with my first son, thinking like, I'm going to be sitting in a rocking chair and I'm going to learn how to crochet so I can like knit things together. I never used the thing. Like I bought it and there it was on a shelf. And it for sure got donated to a better family. But again, pulling that off from the shelf, thinking like, well, that was the ideal version of myself that I thought that I would be doing, that kind of action or that kind of mom, right? When in reality that didn't come to fruition. And that's okay, right? I personally didn't have any guilt or shame around it, but I was like, it just didn't happen. But when people are kind of going through their things, the reason why it's easy for them to overlook decluttering or not really touch on it very much is because there's all those feelings that come up, especially in spaces where there's tender things, there's memories there, right? Bathrooms, there's not going to be a lot of emotions typically tied to bathroom products.
Yeah.
But if you start going through your kids' rooms or artwork, or photo books, there's going to be a lot of memories that come up and a lot of feelings.
That's a good point too, looking at room by room and how your emotions are within that room. Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that's
Yes.
interesting. And thank you for being honest and sharing your story about the crocheting, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, we know we do have ideas of that. Oh, I'm going to start this, or I'm going to do this. And you buy the kit, or it might be the Thermomix, or it might be whatever it is, and you get really excited, and then it just life happens and you find other
Mm-hmm.
things to do. So there's no judgment. I think that's what I'd love people to
Yes.
know is with all of this, you just observe it and are aware, but no one else is like, we always think everyone else is looking at us and judging. But at the end of the day, everyone's into themselves, worrying about their life. And if people are going to judge you, they're not your people.
100%. 100%. I was working with a client and, you know, she was kind of in agony of the fact that she really needs to make sure all the dishes are done and cleared from her sink, every night. Like that's one of her things that helps her feel good and resets the day. And I was like, yeah, but nobody else knows that there's dishes in the sink. Like I would have no knowledge that you kept sinks that, your sink was dirty overnight and, God forbid, they were still there in the morning. So it's the same thing, like what you're saying is like when people are going through their stuff, there literally no one else really cares that much, and again, those items that you have discovered, frankly, a lot of them are going to be, if you donate them, like somebody else is going to be able to pick them up and do something with them and find them useful. So it's being able to, as you're working through your space, for almost like forgiving yourself and just kind of releasing that and letting that go and just, giving yourself that grace that, that's okay. Like it's fine. It's just a lesson. That's part of it is like you're just learning lessons about yourself as you're going through your stuff.
Correct. Interesting that when you said about the dishes, you actually brought up a flashback of a memory of me in my childhood. Um,
Mm,
my mum always used to say, obviously this was before dishwashers and stuff, so I'm showing my age, but with the dishes, she always had to do them and have a clear bench at night and a clear sink
hmm
because her story was, what happens if something happens in the middle of the night and the police come or something, and she didn't want the dishes to be like, isn't that weird that if anything happens in the middle of the night and someone has to come into the home or people have to come over unexpectedly at nighttime? Well, I remember her saying, the police, if
mm.
anything ever happened, I don't want them to walk in and be like, oh, that's gross. She's got dishes in the sink. And I was a little kid when I obviously heard my mum say that. So isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting. Yes, I'd be curious what story led to that, in her mind,
Yeah. Oh, that's
especially with the
kind of,
policeman.
yeah. That's also based as people pleasing. That's
Mm,
very people
hmm
pleasing tendencies and also like authority, like, you know what I mean? Like making sure that yeah, it's very interesting, doing the right thing. So let's look at understanding our organizing style to create like sustainable systems, as in like looking at ways that we can organize things that are actually going to work for us.
Yeah. So, and I know we talked a little bit about this before we hit record, but so a lot of the times when people, if they've gone through and they've decluttered their space, at least here in the States, there's a few, well-known people. There's the Home Edit and Marie Kondo, and people see these systems that they put into place. It's the labels, it's the micro folding of things, and that is, it's what I know you're laughing. Like it's wonderful for certain kinds of people, right? That's where I think people really don't understand when they get into that striving piece of, you know, square, what is it, the round peg with a square hole. It's like they're trying to force something that isn't for them.
Yeah.
And so in these organizing styles, so there's an organizing professional organizer here in the States, Cassandra Arson, and she's got a book called The Clutter Connection. And I loved it. And I love how she explains things. So in the book, she talks about these four different organizing styles. And her name is a clutter bug. So she uses bugs, butterflies, ladybugs, crickets, and bees, right, to kind of explain this. But at the core of it, there's people that need visual abundance and visual simplicity. And basically, it'll help you kind of realize where do you fall in those two camps. And beneath that is the macro and the micro organizers. So again, when you think of your systems, like someone, for instance, like a butterfly is somebody that needs more of the macro. So think of bins, like a whole bin, like let's talk, medicine cabinet. So you go in and you've got bins of like just medicine. And then there's like first aid. And then there's, I don't know, like bandages, things like that in the first aid. But the butterflies, they need clear bins to see these things. Whereas someone else like a ladybug who's a also macro organizer but needs simplicity, they don't want to see it. They just need the label and they need like clear countertops. Like when I fall into that, like I need clear countertops, otherwise it starts giving me some stress, some anxiety.
Okay.
But there's other types of organizers like the crickets and the bees, they're more the micro organizers. That's like Marie Kondo, where they need, like the cricket needs simple, like visual simplicity, again, like clear counters. But the bees need that visual abundance where they can see things. So again, like let's say you're a person that, like Marie Kondo, she's a cricket. So she's a micro organizer but needs that visual simplicity to where she doesn't see a lot of her things.
Mm.
That's why she likes to fold into little, I could never do it, but she folds those shirts and, socks and all of the sweaters and everything like that. Whereas I just throw it all into one drawer, knowing like that's where it is. Like I don't fold anything. It's just in there. I will find it. I've decluttered it. What's in there is what needs to be in there. But then you have people that are kind of going through this and they're like, well, I want to be like Marie Kondo. And maybe it's just so painful for them
Yeah.
to have to fold everything, or within that, first aid or medicine basket that you have in your medicine cabinet, that you then have like, just there's the pain relievers, there's the stuff for the stomach, there's the things for, anxiety. Like it's all those kind of smaller micro containers within it. And that's why I feel like people will just give up. They've started, they've got the bins, they've got the labels, but it doesn't work for them because they haven't really figured out like where do I actually fall in this, in this spectrum, and what do I actually need so that it's sustainable in the season of life that I'm in. That's the biggest thing. I just don't think they really realize like the season of life that they're in and really asking them those questions.
That's huge. I'm a bit concerned because personally, as you go through the butterfly and the cricket and the bee, I'm like, nah, that's not me. No, that's not me. So I don't know. Is there a caterpillar or something, or a cockroach?
No. So do you need to see things? Like, is that, or do you prefer not to see things? Like, do you need to like on your desk, do you need to be able to see what you have, or would you rather it be kind of contained, put away, kind of a clear space?
Probably more of a clear space. Yeah.
Okay. So then maybe potentially you need more of a visual simplicity when you're looking at your space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In your cabinets, and if you're willing to share this information, so do you just kind of throw things in your cabinets and just stuff them in there, like shove them in there? And, or do you have it a little bit more organized where it's in containers and things like that?
A bit of both. So
Bit
even
of
if it's shoved in, it's still like, okay, spices are on one shelf. I've got a cupboard that has all my tin foil, or you guys call it aluminium, the foil that you wrap
Oh,
food.
the aluminum foil.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah. So in New Zealand we call it tin foil. The wrapping, the sandwich, the sandwich freezer bags, all that kind of stuff. I have that all in one cupboard and stuff. So it's all
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have all the boxes lined up with all the bloody labels all done like that. I mean, if I wanted to go down that track, I probably could, but God, I've got other things to do. So I think I'm more of someone that I know where everything is. I have a space for everything, but
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely know after our chat, I'm going to declutter my house. And I say house
Mm,
because I need to do that.
mm. That's gonna be fun. You can call me anytime.
Yeah. Be careful. Yeah, and that's where it's interesting because I'm not, the older I get too, I did, I was more on everything needs to be perfect and um in the right way. And I almost fantasized about having that showroom house. And now I'm just like,
Mm,
ugh, I have no interest. Long as everything's clean and tidy,
mm-hmm.
put away, and I know everything is, I'm cool with that. And I'm actually getting more laxed. I'm a bit worried because I feel like the more I'm leaning into this like bachelorhood, and if there was an award of like bachelorette, I was thinking I'm heading into that direction. I'm like getting so cruisy now that I'm a bit concerned.
Oh no. I think you're fine. I think you're fine.
I'm going the other way. I'm just like, sometimes I'll have kids in the studio if they're coming to see me for therapy, and like
Mm-hmm.
clearly they've got dirty fingerprints all on my white walls, and they're like touching them, and the parents are horrified. I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. And I really don't care. And I just wipe the walls down. And the other day I had a client coming in and I looked at the wall and went, oh, that's dirty, and went and wiped it. But it does concern me because I actually just don't care. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a bother, but I'll worry about that later. And I know the younger me was definitely not wired like that. Like I'm so chill about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting because I feel like that's just a priority shift, right? You're putting
Yeah.
your energy and focus into other things that matter more to you than that having it to be perfect and tidy and clean. you've
It's
kind of gotten to that point, you're like, it's good enough.
yes,
It's good enough for what I need. And I'll put my energy, because I imagine you'd much rather put your energy into your clients and
yes,
serving them,
100%. Yes, yes.
right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't have children, but I really feel for mums out there and my mum friends and stuff. I'm going to speak on a lot of mums right now. I hope everyone gives me permission to do so. But it really hurts my soul when I know of people that have to have the towels folded in a certain way and their linen. Like the linen cupboard is such a thing, and having everything
Hmm.
folded in there, and they get really concerned about it. And even if their husbands help them fold the towels, they have to go in and redo them. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. That's just, again, a priority shift. I just don't understand that. And it just kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, they're trying
Yeah.
to help or something, but they're really like, no, 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 I have to redo it over again, or the vacuuming wasn't done properly. I have to do it. And I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak for every mom in the world, but I think from my experience, a lot of that has to do with there's so much chaos going on in your day as a mom with kids where you are putting out fires, you are emotionally holding a lot of the times your own emotions, right? Having to regulate yourself emotionally with your children.
Mm.
You're teaching them how to emotionally regulate and, be peacemakers in the home and with their siblings. Um, you're being a wife, right? To your spouse, to your husband. And for me, a lot of that was it goes kind of to control. It's like I'm not really able to do much else in my day, but I know I can fold these towels right, you know, or I can, put the dishes in a certain way into the dishwasher,
Oh,
right? That's
yes,
that,
that's
that's a
another
whole
one.
thing.
Yeah, I've heard
That's
that's
just
a thing. I would literally, I do my girlfriend's heads in because they're just like, Barbara, seriously? I'm like, it's all good, shove it in. They're like, you could probably fit another 20 plates in there. I'm like, oh, just turn it on. And they just, no, they're mortified. They're like, I need to reorganize it for you. I'm like, don't worry about it.
it's fine. It'll be clean. It's what I need, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I would just do people's heads in seriously. But yeah, I love how you explained it. So anyone that has bought some organizing stuff, especially being the new year, I think it's a time when people go,
Mm,
oh,
hmm
this year I want to organize my house. I want to organize it, but I want to bring in the decluttering. And then they probably bought some things. And they're probably just sitting on the dining room table or on the kitchen bench and like, yeah, I need to do that. So I think this has come at a really good time for people to actually, what do I need in the season and what's going to work
hmm
for me? I love that.
Absolutely.
I love
Yeah. And
that.
so, if you'd like, I could walk people through just a little bit of like what they could do, like a good place to start. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so a lot of the times, don't go for the hard spaces. And in my mind, the hard spaces are like your closets. Don't start there. There's so much emotion for women wrapped up in that closet space of decisions, your, limiting thoughts about, your body and all that kind of stuff. Start with some place, like I was saying earlier, like the bathroom. The bathroom, it's pretty black and white, right? Dust can be your guide. You've either used these things or you haven't in a long time. You probably don't need 10 different, I mean, I say this, so don't come after me, but you probably don't need 10 different kinds of eyeshadow. Just kind of look through your space and ask yourself, like, okay, so this is where I start and end my day. How do I want to feel when I start my day? What do I want this space? How do I want this space to support me? Do I need to be able to visually see what I want to use, like my makeup, my facial products, things like that? Or do I prefer not to see all those things, right? That's where that kind of goes into that visual simplicity or visual abundance part, right? Um, and then kind of going through your space and just asking yourself those questions like what have I used in the last 6 months? What doesn't serve me right now? What was that ideal version of myself that I bought this, but I'm not really using it? Um, and I always work through just 4 piles. So the first pile is your donate pile. right? So those are the things that you're like, I for sure, I'm not gonna need this. I'm gonna donate it. The next pile is trash. I actually would start with trash because that's hopefully the easiest, right? Just any like plastic wrappers, all that kind of thing.
Can we also, when we talk about the trash, can you also put in the expiry dates? So that's
Oh,
my
absolutely.
one thing I use in my medicine cabinet, especially, and in my medicine cabinet, and obviously my kitchen and stuff, but more so, definitely my medicine cabinet and bathroom. Every product I have, when I'm on the blue moon, when I am decluttering, I will first thing I'll do is not do I use it or not. I'll always check the expiry first. And then after the
Hmm.
expiry, I'm like, okay, now am I going to use this or not? And or how many different moisturizers have I got in here or hairsprays or whatever it is? Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that expiration. See, that makes it an easy answer, right? The choice, you almost like don't even have to make a choice. Well, I guess you do if you're like, do I
Some
keep it? Do I
people
love it
don't
this
care.
much? But it should make it an easier choice of like it's expired. It's probably not good anymore, right? Like medicine, most medicine stays shelf, at least here in the States, like maybe 6 months to a year. Past that, just yeah, you're just not getting as much potency for your medication.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that could be an easy answer. Yes. So start with the trash, start with the expired items,
Mhm.
items that are covered in dust. Again, that's probably going to be either trash or donate, right? And we all have those crevices, right, in the bathroom that you're like, I didn't
Absolutely.
even know this was in here.
Yeah.
And that's also great because when you're looking through these, so I'll get to the sorting here in a minute, but so you've got your trash, donate, um, your keep. So these are the things that you're like, okay, I know I love this stuff. I'm going to use this stuff. I use it daily. I'm definitely keeping it.
Hmm.
Even if you've got like 10 of them, that's fine. Keep all of them, put them there in the keep pile. And then your next one is your rehome. So these are the things that have traveled and crept into your bathroom that maybe don't belong there. And again, this is kind of decisions that you make on how you organize your bathroom, right? But again, for like us, it'd be like there's dog toys or there's kids' books or toys that have found their way into my drawers. All sorts of, I mean, random probably things that maybe need to go to the kitchen. They found their way into the bathroom at some point or another, right? So you put that in a different pile, in a different container box, and you can set that aside and find homes for those.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful. Yeah. That's really helpful.
yeah. And then after you've kind of sorted in those four containers, when you have your keep pile, that's when you go through and that's when you start asking yourself those questions. So like, okay, these were like the for sure I'm going to keep these. Then you get to sort those into what I say categories of like put all your hairspray, your deodorant, your curling irons, your makeup, any kind of toiletries, put them all into those kind of similar categories,
Hmm.
your medicine, all those things. And then that's when you kind of go through those kind of the second round and see like, okay, I've got 10 curling irons. I don't know. Somebody does. I
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
but somebody
Sure they do. Yeah.
somebody's got 10 curling irons for all the different lengths and styles and everything, right? Bless them. And so then they've got to ask those questions like, do I need 10 of these? Am I using 10 of these? What are like maybe three of my favorites?
Yeah.
Let me keep those and then I'm going to put the rest in the donate pile. Same thing, like the cool thing is when you do this, it's happened to me before. Like we've got this store in the States called Costco, which is like this big supply store. I don't know if y'all have
Yeah,
that. I
we
mean,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So, I mean, you can definitely fall into the Costco trap. You're like, well, I've bought 10 different kinds of deodorant. And you discover, and you're like, I don't need to buy deodorant next time I go to Costco because I have a stockpile here, right? That's your overstock. So that's where you can put in, like, all right, so I'm going to put one, on my counter or in the drawer, and the other nine, I know they're over here. And I shop my stuff first versus going and buying because you actually know what you have now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. So that's kind of like the framework that I walk my clients through is putting them into those four different piles, asking yourself, whatever space that you're in, if it's the bathroom, how do I want to start my day? How do I end my day? How do I want to feel in this space? Like that's an important space, your bathroom. Like there's a lot of love that hopefully is in there, some peace, some calmness, some de-stressing. So once you've kind of gone through your piles and you figured out what you have left, then do some nice things for yourself there, right? Get yourself some nice bath salts, or if like there's a candle you want to have there or a plant. That's when you can kind of shift the energy in that space
Mm,
after you kind of done the decluttering of it.
maybe some nice towels. It's so interesting. Towels are
Oh,
something that I probably really need to invest in, but I never do.
100%. I was thinking that the other day. I was like, I need to save up for some nicer towels to go
Yeah.
make a Target run and get some nice towels because you deserve it, right? You deserve some lovely, fluffy towels.
Oh, and there's nothing better than a big bath sheet that covers your whole body and you can wrap it
Mm.
around you 2 or 3 times and you tuck it in the front and you feel like you're in a day spa rather than the skimpy little ones that I have ones that just make it around me or fall off or are itchy or I don't like, you have your favorite towels and when your favorite towels are in the wash, it's horrible. Oh, I have to
Mm.
use this towel.
This is all I have to work with. Yes.
Or the odd
Yes.
occasion when you just dip, I don't know if anyone does this. I've done it recently and it really shits me. It's you jump out of the shower and you go, oh, don't have a towel.
Oh no, oh, that's the worst.
That's the worst one. And then
Oh,
are the curtains up or curtains down in the house? And you have to do the whole like, oh no.
I mean, well, we're gonna make a run for it.
I know, I know. Thank you. That's so helpful for people. You've given people some really step by step, easy to follow. Um, yeah, I know people got to get so much out of this. It's so helpful. If we look
Good, good. I'm
at
glad.
something called the power of a 15-minute declutter, is it such a thing?
There is. You can even make it shorter than that if you like it. But so again, we kind of talked about earlier about how people may want to avoid decluttering just because you're sitting in it. The 15 minutes, like setting a timer for anyone, for moms especially, it's so helpful because your time is so valuable,
Yeah.
right? I know your time is valuable. So it's like that 15 minutes, it kind of gives you that surge of energy to like really like this is my container of time. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to be ruthless. I'm going to get my take everything out. I'm going to put it in my piles, my 4 piles, and you will be surprised how much you can actually get done in 15 minutes. Now, this isn't like again, don't start with a large area, but this could be like a junk drawer,
Yeah.
right? Or like any drawer in your house, you could probably easily your nightstand. I love decluttering that area. Like that area gets so overlooked and such a magnet for just all sorts of random things, you
Yes.
know? But it's there to support you, right? Like that's your place where you hopefully like you have your journals, things like that, things that are like there to support your sleep and
Yes.
how you start your day. But yes, so the 15-minute declutter is really powerful and it feels very accessible for people who are like, this is going to take me hours.
Yeah.
And just that thought, they're like, I don't even want to start.
Mm-hmm.
So at least if you know, like, I only have 15 minutes, as soon as that timer goes off, I can stop. Wherever I am, I just stop. I can put everything back where it was, or just, that could be enough for the day. And so just spending 15 minutes in different areas of your home, I mean, that can add up to so much. If you spent 15 minutes a day for a week, that's a huge amount of time.
A
I
lot.
mean, you'll probably get most of your pain points in your home.
It's a lot. And it's interesting that when you say that when mums or anyone can put the timer on, I get this visual image of, I don't know, I think I heard it in my childhood and I hear it a lot on movies and stuff when parents, like, if you don't pick up your toys, I'm bringing up the big black rubbish sack. And once it's in the rubbish sack, it's gone. Like, it's kind of that whole, and I just visualize mums like 15 minutes, it's always black for some reason, but like a black rubbish bag and they just chuck
Hmm.
everything in. And especially with kids when they have so many toys. And I have heard that parents say to them, if you don't play with it or you don't put it away, it's going to go to donate. And the kids obviously
Hmm.
don't do it. And then they know that the final straw is it's in the black sack. And once it's in the black
Yeah.
bag, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone for good. Well, the black trash bag is helpful because again, like you can't see what's in it. And so it's
Yeah.
like you've made the decision, it's in the black bag abyss.
Yeah.
That's where it is forever and it's gone.
It's interesting. I just want to touch on the closet space a little bit. And I know I have to do that. I have to do that like now. And when I moved countries from New Zealand to Australia 7 years ago, I remember at that time I only lived in a small unit, but I would have had, oh my gosh, at least 8 to 10 full big rubbish sacks of clothes that I couldn't take with me. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to miss this. I don't know how I stored them in my place. My place was small. But when I was moving countries, I was just like, literally, I had all the bags lined up. And I was like, where did these all come from? And the fact that I had to cull them, even though I took a bit of a container over with some of my really important stuff, that was a moment in time where I was just going, oh my, like heartbroken. I'm going to miss this stuff. I don't miss any of it. And it's so interesting that even as females, as our bodies change through different seasons, mine certainly has since moving to Australia. I've got a few suitcases that some clothes are like, obviously I've unpacked, but I've some of the clothes that I can't fit or want to wear one day in a suitcase. And I'm sitting here processing. I have been for ages, but especially when I'm talking to you now, they're all good. There's about 4 or 5 full that I need to just chuck. Because if I get back to that size, great. If I don't, great. But if I do, why would I want to wear clothes that are 7 years old? Like, ooh, like Barbara Coon,
They're probably not in style anymore anyway, right?
it's just fast fashion. I can go buy something cheap. But it's interesting how we hoard, especially as women, onto clothes. And I mean, I understand big statement pieces like a nice pair of boots or a big coat or some nice jeans or a nice shirt or a linen piece that is a bit expensive, and you hold on to those as memories, or like a wedding dress or a school prom dress, or I get all that. But it was interesting that when I had to go through that process of literally downsizing to move my life to a different country, I actually had no choice. Or I had a choice because I had a quarter of a container that I took over, like my TV, paintings, all my baby photo albums and all some important childhood stuff. And there might have been it's interesting, I've got beautiful winter jackets. This is what I'm from New Zealand, some really nice coats. I can't wear them here because it doesn't get cold enough here.
Oh.
So they were sitting in my wardrobe, and I actually just had a moment of like, actually, they're probably all going to have to go too.
It's all sorts of ideas. Yeah, no, I know the closet, it's a hard one. Now, I will say like the beautiful thing with when someone moves, it's the same thing I'll tell moms like with kids' toys. If it's in the container, you know, right. So you think about it like you moved and you're like, it sat in that container, that box. And I have friends the same thing, like they've got boxes that have been there for 6 months to a year. And I'm like, you probably don't need it. Then it is time to donate it, because clearly, if it was something you really needed, you probably would have used it within the first month or gotten to it, unless it was some kind of seasonal clothes and you live in that kind of climate change. But it's not necessary. It's all it is you're managing. It's the mental load of you just seeing it every time and then feeling those feelings of like, it's still there. I haven't used it. Okay, I'll get to it. And so it just keeps filing away in your brain of just like, you're just holding on to that stress, right? And that kind of reminder of like, I need to get to it. It's something else I need to get to. It's same thing with kids' toys. So like when you go, because I mean, goodness, I'm sure you see this with your, like, there's a lot of emotional attachment to toys for kids.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, that's a whole nother tangent we can go into, is just there's simplicity for children. I'm sure you've seen this, that it's so important for them. It's so helpful and supportive for children. Having a simple, not overwhelming environment of things, because they get decision fatigue too.
Yeah.
Right. With all that making decisions, the choices for things. But as parents, and especially grandparents or aunts and uncles and cousins, they like to gift things. So there's usually an abundance of toys or, clothes and things like that. So it's the same thing I tell moms is like, put things in a think tank. Like it could be a container of like, it's just a time box. Like we're gonna get to this, put it over there. If you need to, like keep it for 3 months. If your child has not asked for that specific thing or you've needed it, whatever it is, clothing, things like that, it's probably safe to say that you could probably let it go.
Mm.
But a lot of the times it's the parents that have such a hard time letting go of those things than the child. Usually, not all the time, but usually.
That's so interesting. So I think you mentioned it a little bit before. When we look at our space, and I think you did it in the bathroom, what are the questions to ask yourself when you're
Mm-hmm,
in the bathroom of how my intention of how do I want to start my day? How do I want
mm-hmm,
to end my day? I'm kind of in the kitchen right now. I'm sitting at the
mm-hmm.
breakfast bar. So in the kitchen, I guess what are the kind of questions people would ask themselves in that space?
Yeah. So I think in the kitchen, it's much more of a functional space. So I think again, I always like to tap into like the feelings of things, the emotions, because that's really what your space is reflecting, right? Your space is an outward reflection of what's going on inside of you. And so
Can you
what
say
you're
that again?
seeing,
Your space, because this is I think this is really important for people to hear these words. Your space is a reflection.
it's an outward reflection of what's going on inwardly, internally with your emotions. Yes, it's an outward reflection of what's going in inside.
That's amazing, isn't it? That is,
It is. Yeah.
yeah.
And but, again, that's where a lot of people, because you can walk into homes. I walk into homes and you can see pretty quickly there's things going on beneath the surface. It's not just a quote unquote disorganized, cluttered home. There could be all sorts of things going on in this season of life, right? And again, that's why people I think feel a lot of interesting emotions, that shame, that guilt to have people over if their space doesn't look a certain way. But, again, as moms, it's like there's zero judgment. I mean, just as a person that I ever have going into a home, let alone as a mom's home, I'm like, listen, there is so much going on in your life. Your home does not need to look pristine, right? I wouldn't expect it to, but I think that's just something that a lot of people don't realize. And again, they're kind of avoiding. They don't understand that connection between the outward appearance of what's going on in their home and just what's going on underneath. Yeah. So kind of going back to your kitchen question of like what questions would you ask? So I think kind of walking into a home and looking into their kitchen space, some of the questions I would think to ask would be, you know, how do I want this kitchen to serve me? What do I do in this kitchen? Like, are you the cook? Do you like to cook? Do you like to bake? Are you not the person that's the cook or the baker of the home, right? Um, if you definitely this might be getting your partner or spouse into this equation and asking them these questions. And then looking at your kitchen and kind of seeing like, okay, so how do I want this space to serve me? How do I want to feel when I'm in this space? For moms, we are in the kitchen a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, it is like we are just short order cooks all day long. There's always somebody, whether it's my husband or my children, my two boys, going in and poking their heads into the refrigerator or the pantry or asking for a snack or something like that, right? So it's like, okay, knowing that it's a revolving door of serving food and wanting it also to be a welcoming space. Because that's
Yeah.
another thing is like, so again, that goes back to like, how do you want it to feel? Like, I want it to feel warm and inviting. I want it to feel welcoming, but I want it to service, and I don't want it to feel overwhelming here.
Mm.
I don't want it to feel like I am serving this space. It's not serving me, right? So that's when you kind of think about, okay, so given those kind of questions, then you move through your space, you do your decluttering. The kitchen is also, it's a large space. So, I mean, the pantry, the refrigerator, all the drawers and cabinets, there's a lot to cover. So I wouldn't you know, there's less emotional questions there, but it's just the square footage, at least in the States. Some people, I know in different parts of the world, the kitchens are enormous. So it might be a lot easier to declutter. But if it's a large space, large kitchen, yes, it might take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So that would I'd suggest to actually kind of group it like just the pantry, just the refrigerator, just your junk drawer. Like start small in those spaces.
That's a really good idea. And when we look at a mess in our house, wherever, what's the message that when we do have mess or clutter, what is that trying to tell us?
Mm, I mean, it could be telling you all sorts of messages, right? Again, I think that's where a lot of people don't necessarily want to, dig beneath the surface
Mhm.
of. Um, I mean, I know talking from personal experience, when there's mess and clutter in our house, which is again like my I used to be a lot more tidy of a person that I moved in with my husband, and that he kind of broke me down a level or two. And then you become a mom, and then again, like another level or two down. And like at this point, it's like I have a very high threshold for mess and clutter. And I think that's also part of it is like, what's your threshold, right? So your threshold might be like, I am fine with stuff on the floor or like, clutter on the countertops. But it's like when you're looking around and you're like, gosh, this is a lot more than what I'm used to. I was talking to a coaching friend and we kind of talked about this because she's like, I just feel I'm so behind. She's a single mom with two boys and she's doing our coaching business too. And she's like, I basically am moving my clothes, my clean clothes, moving them on the bed so I can sleep. I've got dishes in the sink. There's so much, there's just stuff everywhere. And I was like, well, I mean, like, is that typical for you? Like, it's, you know, again,
Yeah.
no judgment, but is that how you typically live in your home? She's like, no. And I'm like, well, okay, what's going on right now? Like, if that's where you have to start kind of asking yourself some questions of like, okay, what's driving maybe this, is there am I having some relationship challenges, is there something at work, um there could be all sorts of clues, and that's what I think is like your clutter is kind of like your clues, right? And kind of going back to that threshold of like, well, here's where my baseline is, but I'm way past that baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. Now I want to ask you before I go on to the last question, and we're going to talk about life minimalist and what is a life minimalist. I just want to ask you one more question. Um, when as a professional, when you walk into people's homes, have you ever had friends or a client that you walk in and it's literally like a showroom? Can it go the other way when someone's house is so perfect that that's a bit of a red flag?
I mean, yeah, like kind of wondering like, why am I here? But I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if it's a showroom kind of home, there is absolutely going to be some place in that home that is not. There
Ah,
is,
okay.
there's, they're not going to call me, at least for the organizing side, life coaching side, but like the organizing side, they're not going to call me unless there's actually something going on in their home. Or potentially like I have this system, but it's just not working for our family.
Okay.
Right. So no, the showroom, I mean, good on them. I mean, they've obviously figured out a system that works for them, and hopefully they're happy with that system and it supports their lifestyle, right?
Yeah, I just feel like sometimes when people are like that, it's more for other people than for themselves. Like it's more portraying that I've got my shit together. This is, look at us, look at us. I just feel like sometimes it comes
Yes.
to that.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I think, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I feel like it depends on the energy of the home
Yeah.
because, there's some people, hospitality is huge for them. And part of that hospitality is having a welcoming space that feels like you feel at ease in.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the beautiful thing is some people love hospitality and they're like, just come in, just move some stuff aside. Like, I'm here for you. Like, I just care about you and you just care about me. Right. So there's a spectrum there. Um, yeah. So I think it'd be just more like the energy that when you go into a home that you can kind of tell, like, where is this, showroom kind of energy coming from? Yeah.
Okay, that's one last question. What is something that I want to ask you is what is a life minimalist?
A life minimalist. So, in my terms, a life minimalist is someone that really just focuses more on the things that are really important to them in the season of life that they're in. They're someone that, you know, if, having that home a certain way, a certain look is important, great. But it's not, I feel like so in the States we have this, that word, the minimalist,
Yeah.
and it's I don't want to say it's kind of gotten a negative connotation, but it's sometimes, you think of this very austere, white, like barely anything there in your home kind of look. And, some people love that. And, definitely like if that's you, I mean, that's amazing. But when I think of like life minimalist, it's someone that is very, very intentional about every area of their life. They're intentional with their relationships that they're building. They're intentional with their family life at home, with their husband, with their children. They're intentional with the choices that they make. Like they've really gotten very focused in and know the values that they want to live out each day, and that having that kind of core value system that influences all the choices, all the decisions that they make in their life, of like how busy their calendar is or not is, right? um Putting in those kind of rhythms that they have in their day or their week that support them, like, self-care. If self-care is one of your core values, which, frankly, I think all of us need to have that, have some kind of self-care as a core value, because it's also self-worth, it's a self-value. um, that will influence your choices and decisions that you make in the season of life that you're in right now. If that's important to you, of having that rest, that respite. We're here in Texas, we're in winter. And so, this is the season of rest, of just kind of going underground a little bit, grounding yourself and kind of moving through that season, and kind of coupling those rhythms with that. And then spring comes and that can change as well. I very much feel like people living through seasons is so helpful and supportive, because then it doesn't make it like it's an always and forever decision.
Yeah.
It's just a right now. Like
Mm.
what's helpful and supportive for me right now in this season of life.
Wow. Yeah. You've just given us some really helpful tips and tricks and things to actually think about, which I don't think people would, I don't know, I can't speak again for everyone, but something that people are like, oh, I'm not only good at organize this weekend, I'm actually good at declutter. And I've actually got some really good tips. So I think if people, I know that they want to reach out to you and follow you and find out more about this decluttering and organizing. And I know that you're also a life coach. So how can people find you and get in contact with you if they want to know a bit more about you?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. So on Instagram, I'm at Cultivate Your Legacy, and my website is melinakanecoaching.com. So MELINAKANE coaching.com. And I mean, I just love so much that we have such a international community on your podcast. So definitely say hi. Don't be shy. I love all sorts of different cultures and people, and I think it's just fascinating. And I know Barbara, we were talking about, like, I feel like Australia is the cool kids. And I know that you think, Texas has the cool cowboys, but I think that's the beautiful thing. Is like there's so much that connects all of us. And I love just meeting new people and from all over the world.
Yeah, and anyone that knows me now, if you go back on into my podcast, I think I don't know, I think this might be episode 86. I think.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing. But I think a lot of them, I've attracted a lot of people from your country to be on my podcast. It wasn't planned, it hasn't been. But in my heart, I've always had a really deep connection to your country. And that's what I mean. It's kind of interesting how the way that this is all unfolding. And I think you guys are the cool kids. Like, I love your accent. And I just love it. So thank you for I know our time difference, sometimes it's a bit hard to kind of get organized, but I just thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and chat to us about something that is a complete reflection of when I see people in my private practice of decluttering and organizing their space will really help their mental health, will really help them clear their mind and being able to, move forward and make some changes. So it's so powerful, and I think it's so heavily overlooked.
Yeah. No, you're so right on that. And I appreciate your time. This was so fun. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, well, I'm sure people will have some questions about decluttering, and I'm going to do my area in my house, and then I can always come back to and do a bit of a recap of this.
I'd love to hear
this
it.
is kind of what I've done, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it will be all three.
Absolutely, but it'll be the best. But thank you so much for your time today. This was so fun.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio. Or head over to my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.